Okay, today on the show, we have Maximiliano Götz from MGNI in Argentina. Let me tell you more about Max. Now, Maximiliano Götz is a seasoned professional with over 25 years of real estate and management experience. He operates the M. Götz Negocios Inmobiliarios, which is MGNI, which serves the city of Buenos Aires in Argentina and the province of Buenos Aires, and is a member of the National Association of Realtors. Götz attended Lincoln School in Lucia for his elementary through high school education. So his American grandparents and mother played a crucial role in his ability to handle English-speaking clients relations effectively. He pursued higher education at University del Salvador and University Nacional de la Matanza. My apologies. I do not speak Spanish, so I'm doing my
No,
very,
that's
very
great.
best. But MG&I, his firm offers a range of services, including real estate transactions, property management, appraisals, and consultancy for both local and international clients. And the reason that we're bringing Max on the show today is that we don't ever talk on the show about international investments outside of the US. And we figured, with things being the way they are right now with U.S. real estate, in particular with the NAR settlement, that's obviously changed some things for buyers and sellers here in our market, that perhaps it would be a good idea to also introduce the idea, of course, outside investments. And certainly people are doing that. And 7 years on the show, and I haven't really ever had this conversation. So I'm so excited to bring on Max. Please visit Max on his website, and I'm going to spell it for you. It's mgotz.com. mgotz.com. We have a link to that in the show notes as well. Max, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, DJ. It's a thrill. Thank you.
It's a thrill for me as well. I was asking Max just to talk to the listeners for a second. Just before he came on, you'll notice Max does sound like he is not from Argentina, at least what I would assume somebody from Argentina, born and raised, would sound like, but he is. And we talked, in the little intro there, we talked about how he, studied English, of course, growing up. But it is truly incredible. You probably have less of an accent, American accent, than I do, but you have really, really, it's amazing that you've spent your whole life there. But how did you, obviously you were born there. How did your parents get to Argentina?
Well, they had the foresight. My mother, who actually lived in the United States, and my grandparents, who were New Yorkers. My grandparents would come and go to Argentina, and then they settled here for a number of years, and then they went back to the States and eventually retired in Florida. But my grandparents, my mother's parents, and my mother had kind of the foresight to K through 12 put me into the international school, of which, all capitals have one of these, where all the expat kids and the military kids, all these guys go to. And so, added to the fact that my mother, an English professor, my grandmother was also an English educator, and also from the United States. So you can imagine English was heavily spoken, not just at home, but obviously at school. Plus the fact that I would, during our winters and your summers, I would fly up to the States and spend 2 or 3 months at a time. So the language, the formality of the language was quickly added to all the nuance and the colloquialism and all that kind of fun stuff. And I guess to a degree, the fact that I love it as much as I do, the language and meanings and stuff like that, I guess that also helped, because like when you like something, it comes a bit easier.
Absolutely. Well, it's incredible. I suspect you probably even meet people, local natives in Buenos Aires who probably go, "Oh, wouldn't assume that you were born and raised here as well."
I've been told I sound like someone who is from New York a lot, someone who's from Kansas, which was a first a couple of years ago, and then one guy told me I sounded like Jeff Goldblum. So I've been trying to perfect that too.
Oh, you do have a little bit of Jeff Goldblum. I love it. I love it. Well, let's talk about real estate in Argentina. So, first of all, how did you get into the real estate industry down there?
Well, I started one of my very first jobs, as cliche as it sounds, was in real estate for a number of months, and then I moved on to other things, and eventually went to university. But I kind of liked it, and I liked the fact that it involved working with people. Um, I was in law school for a number of years, and it wasn't my thing. I did not enjoy it. So right around the time of being either second or third year law school student, a friend of a friend had a foreign couple that needed help managing a property that they had here in Buenos Aires. So I took that as a kind of an odd job, and we managed it, and we did the pre-Airbnb thing, which is VRBO,
Sure.
for rentals, which was at the time pretty big here, exploding. So we started with managing that property, and that, in a good way, sort of snowballed into two apartments, four apartments, 10 apartments. And I said, well, gosh, I'm going to kind of professionalize this and make a website and make a this and make a that. Once it became a kind of a fixed 9 to 5, or actually Monday to Monday job, where we also added city tours and concierge services. That plus the fact that I wasn't having any fun at school, I sort of began doing that altogether, just that branch of real estate. Over time, what happened was a lot of people wanted to buy. Foreigners would come down and say, "Wow, I love my stay here, and I would really like to consider um, working or buying something here." So that over time, because I wasn't licensed at the time, I had to send my clients across the street to someone who was licensed, and then in the hopes of getting a commission from them. So that prompted me to go back to school and become a realtor, which in Argentina is a 3 year college course. It's not
Wow.
yeah. It's a college course. But essentially, that's what had happened. And one of my favorite stories is that early on, we had a guy from Southern California who, to this day, is a client, and a very kind of you know agreeable single guy who travels the world. He said, "Look, I'd love to take you out to dinner and learn more about buying real estate." So we went out to dinner. It was a business dinner, and we hit it off. And at one point in the conversation, for whatever reason, something reminded me of a scenario from the TV show Seinfeld, which I know for you guys was massively popular. And I'm a huge fan. And this guy happened to be probably right up there as big a fan as I am. And so that immediately shifted the conversation from here's how you buy, here's how do, yeah, what you do, what you don't do, to remember the episode when. And so from there, the restaurant was closing. We went for a couple of beers. We continued to talk about that. Cut to 17 years later, the guy is still a client. We manage his property, and we're still talking about the same, silliness. So, you just the business just goes forward organically, however it will. But it kind of, in a way, found me because it mixed things that I liked, which is working with people, working with foreigners with whom I kind of have a rapport, especially U.S. and Canada, because that's kind of the culture that I was surrounded by. And so, yeah, I went back to college. I did I majored, as it were, or got the course credits for that, and started up and formalized it even more.
Well, thank you. Tell us a little bit about the real estate market in Argentina. Sort of what are you currently experiencing there, and where do you see opportunities, maybe even challenges?
Yeah. Well, to answer your question directly, we are now in what could best be described the fifth year, sixth year, maybe even of a buyer's market. It's been a buyer's market for a long time. I do think we've already hit rock bottom, although we're not far above rock bottom. And for for those who may not know this, and there's no reason why you would know this, but Buenos Aires presents the ability to buy real estate at prices which are fantastic when you compare them to other world-class cities, New York, I don't know, Berlin, London, Paris, at a fraction of the cost, really, and with some of the most beautiful architecture you will find, and a very Latin ambiance, because we have this. It's like New York; it's a melting pot, and our forefathers are the Spanish and the Italian, and to a lesser degree, the Germans and the Austrians and so forth. Um, we have the eighth largest Jewish population here. And it's also worth noting that Argentina is the eighth largest geography in the world.
Hmm.
It's got one of the largest um, deposits of potable water, lithium. So there's a lot of business to be had if the right government runs the country, which we could circle back to that. But you've also got everything you need in the way of tourism. You've got desert, you've got the Iguazu Falls, which are one of the UNESCO heritage sites around the world. You've got beach, you've got skiing, you've got the glaciers down south. So there's a little bit for everyone.
And
And
I would argue maybe the best food in South America, or certainly of the best food. Maybe Peruvians
well,
might think, every country thinks they probably have the best food, but Argentina is one of the South American countries that makes its way up here. We have Argentinian steakhouses here in
yeah,
Chicago, New York, bigger
sure.
cities have them. I don't see a lot from other other South American
Well,
countries.
the beef, to be sure. I don't know about the food as a general. I love our local food. I
Sure,
also love, I love food in the U.S. I love food in
sure,
Europe.
sure, sure.
It's all got its things. But the beef here is
Oh,
I would like to be objective in saying I think it is second to none.
yeah.
But yes, we have very good beef. We have very good produce. Um, and the real estate market is undergoing still what you would call a buyer's market. And we have seen more. In fact, our niche has become over the years the foreign investor and assisting them in the process of either buying real estate or selling real estate if they already own it from before, or everything in the middle, management or consultancy or whatever. Now, I'm going to tell you one thing, which is possibly the biggest cultural shock that you will come to find about real estate in Argentina, and it is that transactions are done 90% of the time, if not more, cash on the barrelhead. And what I mean by that is you come with the money, you lay it on the table, the money is counted, and the deed is signed. Okay, here's your money, here's your keys. Thanks for everything, and the notary uh, witnesses it, and that's that. We do not have 20-year mortgages. Financing is very hard to come by for locals, never mind foreigners. So in order to buy real estate, most of the time you need to have the cash, much like, a Clint Eastwood movie where the guy comes in with the dollar satchels and plops them on the table. You come in with the cash, and that's just the way it's worked for many, many years. And we're hoping to be able to join the 21st century and come up with other more pragmatic and safer solutions. But for in the meantime, that's how the final leg of it is done with cash.
And how has the rental market been? You mentioned VRBO being the leader in that sort of space, in the short term rental space, or the online short term rental space, certainly for people visiting. And now, of course, Airbnb probably taking the lead on that, or maybe they're battling it out. Depends on, I guess, which country. But
Mm,
how is I know I guess we're talking about tourism. So I know tourism was huge pre-COVID. Obviously, COVID changed everything for every country,
yeah.
not necessarily Argentina. But there was a huge drop off in tourism. Once COVID hit, obviously. Now things are back to relative normalcy. Have you seen an increase, an uptick in Americans coming down there, people from other countries obviously visiting? How is the tourism been?
Well, yeah, well, here's what's interesting. During COVID, our office saw a huge influx of work. And it's incredible because obviously many real estate firms had to shut down, had to stop working really because they depend on sales and rentals, and a lot of stuff had shut down. And you were kind of adding insult to injury there because the Argentine economy was already not in a good place. It was in bad shape. So this was like an elderly patient who gets a virus in the hospital versus a young healthy patient. So we were already kind of not doing great. Now this is very interesting. What happened was COVID hit, the pandemic hit, everything was shut down, and a whole lot of people that were scheduled to leave were suddenly stuck in Argentina. So they needed housing right away. Many of those people were kind of, flirting with the idea of buying something. They were forced to pull the trigger, but many more needed long-term housing. So all of a sudden, a barrage of people would contact us about, I need a place, I can't leave, and many other people who were getting during the first few months where people would get, I don't know about the rest of the world, but here you would get special permits to fly into Argentina if you were a foreigner because my wife is Argentine or I'm about to be married or my child is about to be born. We had a lot of that. So we had to help people find a home solution. So there was that. Um, and yeah, we saw quite a few people who, I mean, again, work kind of really blew up, which was strange. Tourism, tourist or tour agencies had to pretty much shut down. They had no money coming in, but some real estate firms, or at least ours, we saw quite a bit of work. Now, yeah, you're right. Tourism prior to that was doing really well, and once COVID sort of ended, it blew up again. I think we've been getting records of amount of people coming into Argentina. The dollar still gets you a very long way, even though Argentina has an endemic inflation problem, 243% interannual last time, it came out this month. For foreigners, to say for you coming down in US dollars, it's still kind of a deal. There are things you will find to be more expensive, and there are things you'll find to be dirt cheap. But all of that, I think, to a degree, takes a back seat to the fact that people just feel like they fall in love with not just Buenos Aires, but generally speaking, what they go out and do in Argentina. And yes, the Airbnb tool, which we use, became increasingly popular among people here. So much so that this was sometime after VRBO, although it happened with VRBO as well. But hotels started to heavily lobby Congress for added taxes or for like a kind of
Sure.
a list where people would jot down their names and say, okay, look, I'm renting through Airbnb and so forth. This being Argentina, this being a Latin mindset, not a whole many people wrote themselves down at that Gestapo list that the government wanted us to sign, or well, not us, but the owners. But hotels were having a bad time at it because they could no longer charge whatever they wanted. All of a
Right.
sudden, they had this kind of a new
The
player
market's
in town.
dictating a different price. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But Airbnb operates legally, and we haven't had that situation that you guys have had in New York and a few other cities where it's kind of all but banned.
Yeah.
So we do see it there. We do see it here, and it's very much used. And again, our office uses it as a tool. I would say it represents about of our vacation or short-term rental leg of business, a good 20 or 25% of what comes in. So, needless to say, it's pretty important.
So if I'm a realtor here in the US and I have investor clients who are cash heavy who are looking for either, so I guess there's two types, well there's more than two types of investors, but the two types that are coming to mind at the moment is the second vacation home or a vacation home maybe down in Argentina where I visited, I love it, I want to return and rents it out. Maybe hire you to manage it along the way. When I'm not there, let's keep it full. Or maybe people who, of course, just want to keep it empty for the higher net worth individuals, maybe who just need a second place. And then, of course, the more sort of the investor who is really just looking for a cash return on their investment. So, what would you say to them as far as why they should consider? And again, there's three different buckets there, but I know I'm asking
Yeah,
kind of a complicated question. But let's tackle one at a time. So, for the person who visits Argentina, falls in love, like my sister did last year when she visited, and I sadly was unable to accompany her and my brother-in-law and my 7-year-old nephew has been to Argentina and I have not, and I'm angry about this, but I'm not really angry, but I find it so funny that a 7-year-old made it there before I did. But they fell in love with it. They came back. They're like, you have to go. So now they're giving me grief that I have to go. But um, what would you say to somebody who why should they consider a long term investment there?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I completely agree. I think you hit the nail on the head. The two, I would say, main investment groups are those two. And by the way, they're not necessarily mutually exclusive. Um, but the guy that falls in love, to be sure, or wants a second home, to be sure. But the second group, which I find to be the most interesting group, is the guy that is playing the capital gains game. You know, he's going to buy something at a down market, which of its own, you can get something which would otherwise cost you in New York City $600,000, maybe here for $120,000. And I mean a one bedroom in a good area with a view, so forth and so on. And I'm just comparing New York because it's the only market that I kind of tangentially know about in any event. But I would say, yeah, you would, just what our grandparents taught us. You buy low and you sell high. You keep it over time. Do not expect to make a short-term ROI. Do not sell to a client that you are going to buy, put it nice and prim and proper, put it on the market, and start getting $3,000 a month clean from your rental. For many reasons, not the least of which is there is a large supply of real estate being offered for short-term rentals. Um, and also because of the fact that while it is, yes, an expensive city, and given the fact that there's so much supply, you can't ask whatever you want. You might have the most beautiful three-bedroom penthouse unit overlooking the river and so forth, but if you put it at a price which people do not want to pay, they're not going to pay. And our client base, which as I said is predominantly the North American client base, you guys are pretty savvy. You guys shop around. You guys have a culture of knowing the value of your currency. So while there are people who will try to overcharge, I think the seasoned tourist or even not seasoned tourist knows how to shop around for pricing. So again, I think we were talking about it earlier, but if you were to take a pie chart of why would someone buy in Argentina, would someone from Chicago buy in Argentina, you might say, yes, okay, the investment game of buying low, selling high, the fact that I have a second home, I can make some money off of it, I can Airbnb it out, and then during the winter months, I'll escape Chicago and I'll come down for a month or whatever. Nowadays, you've got the digital nomad things, but in that pie chart, I can tell you in my conversations over and over and over again, it's the fact that, man, I love it here. Man, the lax nature of things, the fact that it's not as, buttoned up as in the US or Canada or pockets of Europe, the fact that it's also loosey goosey, it's a common denominator in my conversations with people. And that would make a good 20 or 25% of that pie chart. I tell you, it's just one of those things. Or they say, look, I didn't know what to expect, and I love it. I just love it here.
Now, I remember visiting Nicaragua probably 10 years ago on a vacation and ended up, so Central America ended up, I can't remember the city's escaping me at the moment, but I think it's San Juan. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Anyway, we ended up at this surfing area
Hmm.
in Nicaragua, very famous apparently, and we were staying at this Eco Lodge, this really kind of cool place that with other Americans who were staying there, and one of them was actually they were Australians, and they were going to invest and build a condo or build some sort of home on the beach, and it was really exciting and cool to hear their story. And then I thought, well, Nicaragua, and again, not comparing Nicaragua and Argentina, but just sort of a foreign investment idea. I was like, wasn't Nicaragua somewhat unstable at some point? Government unstable. I know they had their share of issues years and years ago. But I said, did that factor into your decision as far as the stability of the economy, the stability of the political system there, and who's running things, of course? And they said, yeah, but they were confident that they felt the government was competent and wasn't going to
Yeah,
be overthrown. Does that come up in conversations with investors about this sort of what's going on in Argentina? And I'm not suggesting there's anything to
yeah.
be concerned about, but we just don't know.
Yeah. No, no. Well, first of all, you don't have to but pick up a newspaper and read what's going on in Argentina. But Argentina has had and continues to have its share of economic crises. As I said, inflation is probably topmost on the list. Recession, corrupt governments, things of that nature. Now, the wonderful thing though is, and I like to tell my foreign clients this, let's say DJ, you fly down, you buy something, you get the best of both worlds. And why do I say that? Because you're able to enjoy all the great things that the country has to offer without having to put up with the BS that it also has to offer. One guy once asked me, "Hey, do you guys have any, do you have hurricanes or earthquakes? Do you have any natural?" No, 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 we don't have any of that, thankfully. We just have government. So, we are only as good as the people who govern us are. And I think thankfully these last elections have kind of, there's been some winds of change in that regard. And I think we're moving towards a different and much better place. But people do ask us that. And the great thing is, I can speak to other countries where in Latin America or in the Americas where something like that would affect a foreign investor. There are stories about Costa Rica,
Sure.
Brazil, even Canada has certain laws and bylaws that you cannot buy as an American unless. Argentina, thankfully, has nothing like that. The owning property in Argentina is the process of getting from A to Z, to be sure, is complex, and we do hand holding, and that's kind of where we, I think, stand apart. And I think what we like most about our job, which is explaining, okay, now this is going to happen, and now this is going to happen, now that's going to. But the reality is, once it's all said and done, there is a notary public, which is not to be confused with how you guys have notaries in the United States and they have a rubber stamp at Kinko's. Here, a notary public is necessarily a lawyer, and it's
Mm,
very, very hard to become a notary public. And he is the person who is in charge of not just signing and witnessing and stamping, but also he is in charge of the due diligence, which includes, but isn't limited to, title study, insurance. He's the guy who will say, look, gentlemen, this cannot be signed because it appears that there is a lien on this property from the seller, or it appears that there is an embargo on that person's salary or whatever. So once all that's been completed and the due diligence done and everything is okay, and you, DJ, sign as the buyer, that's the end of it. No one can come out of the woodwork and say, hey, look, I'm the long lost son of the seller. I didn't approve this. No, you're not, because this is we did all the due diligence, we did all our homework, and here's the deed, which by the way comes in a special sheet of paper with a number and then sent to the county registrar's office, recorded, it comes back and given to you, and that's it. It's yours. Squatters' rights, uh, expropriation, anything. Expropriation, to be fair, does exist in Argentina, as it does in any country. But as we know, it has to do with taking the property or group of properties for the greater good, like a highway, like a that kind of thing. But you don't really hardly ever see that at all. So to your question, sorry, I kind of went off the reservation, but no, you don't. It doesn't affect. If anything, when there are economic woes and a buyer's market presents itself, that's when I mean, we're preaching to the choir, I guess here, but that's kind of when you strike, right? When the iron is hot.
sure. It's interesting. I looked up because I was curious. I don't usually hear Argentina in the news with respect to unrest. They don't usually participate in a lot of outside war or even internal war. And so I was on Wikipedia. And I go, wonder when the last time Argentina's had a real serious sort of arms conflict. And 1994, which was during basically the well, actually, no, I take it back. Yeah, 1994 was kind of the last time that I found it. I'm not even sure it was called Operation Talos, but anyway, that's the last time on Wikipedia that there was any sort of acknowledgement of any sort of movement within the country or with their participation outside or people invading or coming in. So it seems to be a very stable and safe country. I mean, certainly the
Hey,
United States has had plenty of conflicts since 1994.
yeah, I mean, it's an interesting perspective. Safe, I would agree wholeheartedly. Stable, it depends on your definition. It is a democratically stable country for sure, and because of the fact that we had military dictatorships for a number of years, the last of which was extremely bloody and most people know about the fact that people disappeared and so forth. They made a point of protecting democracy in a very, very big way. So democracy returned to Argentina in 1983. And yeah, I would say that from a democratic standpoint, Argentina is like the U.S. It's a federal it's a federal democracy, and so a federal republic. And so, yeah, we've made a point of making it, I think, well, the country has made a point of having it be safe. Now, stable, it depends on how you define stable. Economically, ish. Fiscally, ish. But I think we are certainly trying to better ourselves in that regard. Um, but there again, the investing of real estate does not see itself affected by whatever fiscal
Right.
instability there might be. You're going to buy real estate and it's going to be there and you can do with it whatever you want. Now, if you, DJ, as a Chicago native, want to come to Argentina and start an import export business, or you want to open a restaurant, or you want to open any other type of business, that's going to require a lot more due diligence because those kinds of things will see themselves affected more noticeably on the day to day. You're going to have employees, you're going to have taxes to be paid. See what I mean? But with real estate, it's something that you buy, and it's a degree to which it's a one-off. So much so that you can say, "I got this at a killing. I'm going to just leave it there, have someone pay for the taxes, water the plants. I'm going to wait 10 years, and then I'll sell it when the market turns." People have done that.
Yeah, and also too, we should just mention, and this is something that just my ignorance of geography up until probably a few years ago, certainly in South America, my knowledge of where the countries are all positioned is not is embarrassingly poor. But Argentina is also how we oftentimes get to Antarctica, right? If for Antarctica tours, I know there are ways to get there from Argentina. So this also I mean, Argentina just was really a very sort of versatile country. There's a lot that you could do there as a tourist. There's a lot of
Absolutely.
places you can go. I have friends that have gone and done marathons down in Antarctica
Oh
or
yeah.
some sort of I don't know if it was an Ironman triathlon or whatever they were doing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we've had those here. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and
No,
they all
it's
typically go right into Argentina on the way.
yeah, no, you're right. Argentina is the tours to Antarctica start here. You fly down to one of the southernmost provinces. I think from there you fly over to Islas Malvinas, which is otherwise known as Falkland Islands to many. And then you go to Antarctica. And the people that I know that have done that, they swoon over it. They say it's fantastic. And I have heard more than once that they are eventually going to try to do away with that because of what it's doing to the environment over a course of decades.
Ah,
I don't know.
got it.
I don't know if that's true or not. But yeah, to your point, Argentina has and a lot of people, especially my European clients, don't uh, don't quite capture the massive nature of the country, and they say, I'm going for 5 days. I'd like to see the falls and the beach and the
Sure.
glacier. And these are people who, walk 5 blocks are in a different country, Not so much here. You got to take a flight to say the Iguazu Falls, which is 2 hours. You got to fly down to where the glaciers are, which is like 3 hours. But to be sure, we do have it all. We've got mountain, we've got skiing, we've got beach, we've got the Iguazu Falls. The city of BA alone has some of the most beautiful architecture you'll see. We've got, I think, one of the it was in a list somewhere, one of the either biggest or most beautiful bookstores, which used to be a theater house. Um, we have a lot of those, biggest or best of or whatever. The river that separates Argentina with Uruguay is the widest river in the world. Although technically it's not really a river; it's an estuary. But I digress. But it's there's you're right. There's lots to do. Just the city of BA alone, there's plenty to do.
And with tourism having returned, and I don't anticipate any sign of that slowing other than being some sort of calamity like we had with COVID. This is a place where people will return to time and time again. So from an investment perspective, unless something changes and the government for whatever reason becomes
Yeah.
unfriendly to tourism, which I'm sure will not be the
Yeah.
case because it's such a big driver for the economy, is going to be a pretty stable investment. It sounds like, at least
Yeah.
in the idea of getting tourists there and enjoying what Argentina has to offer.
Yeah. Well, this new government, which is by all accounts what you might characterize as a libertarian government, very much to the right. In fact, this president, who has also been on everybody's lips of late, is the first Argentine president to be an economist, which is, if you
Mm.
think about it, it's a huge deal,
Yeah.
especially in a country that has suffered inflation for decades. In fact, we are of the few countries around the world that has not stomped out inflation. It's everyone else is kind of, yeah, you guys are now having this kind of hiccup of it again and so forth, but really inflation has been all but um, made disappear by most countries. And so this is the first time we've had an economist as president. We've had lawyers, a lot of lawyers. We've had one dentist, one MD, and of course military corps presidents. But I think that opening up the floodgates of foreign investment certainly piques the interest of the world, we think.
Wow. Well, it's really a great opportunity. So if I'm a realtor here and either I'm interested in exploring bringing this to my clients who maybe are high net worth clients who want maybe a second home where they either let it sit or rent it while they're not there, or maybe an investor, maybe even an institutional investor who is looking for good cash flow. What's really the best way someone could start to sort of get a hold of what's how it works down there and how they should present it to their clients?
Well, I mean, to be sure, information is key. And in this age of the internet and everything else, information certainly is online. There's a lot of it which is faulty, and there's a lot of it which is inexact, but there's a lot of it which at least gives you a starting point. In our case, we made it a point to be members of the Realtors Association up in the States so that we could have a foothold in if anybody needed something, our name was there, and they could reach out to us in English, no less, so there would be nothing lost in translation. Also members of, for example, the Argentina Texas Chamber of Commerce. And again, in our case, we set up these webinars, and I even wrote a couple of ebooks that detail what the process is, and gives people a primer of what to do and what to know and what to expect. And then from there, people really need only Google real estate firms in Argentina and find out which ones are good, which ones are not, or actually, determine themselves which ones are good, which ones are bad, and take it from there. But reading up on it, maybe calling the NAR, maybe also reaching out to realtors here in Argentina, forums. Forums are also great for that. Online forums, expat forums.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I have a friend because National Association of Realtors is headquartered here in Chicago. One of my good friends, who is a Chicagoan, is really native to the Philippines, and she is the ambassador, or I'm not sure exactly what the title is, but we'll call her ambassador for NAR to the Philippines. And so she represents NAR, visits the Philippines, and sort of is always passing information back and forth. I suspect there is one as well with NAR for
Oh yeah,
Argentina.
yeah,
And yeah, and so that's another option too, is to call NAR and say, hey, I would like to learn a little bit more about Argentina. Is there someone I can connect with? Usually the way that NAR
yeah,
works is they will find someone who is natively born, oftentimes natively born in that country, who really
yeah.
understands the customs and culture and the politics and the financial, the fiscal sort of policies. And then sort of that person becomes a resource to other
Yeah.
realtors as well as yourself.
Well, Well, NAR, as you probably know, they have a collection of courses that they offer us. And I did the what is it, the CIPS, the Certified
Hmm.
International Property Specialist one,
Hmm.
and I was, which was very enlightening in terms of how real estate works in other American countries. Come to find, Argentina wasn't in the course. So I did the course. I reached out and said, "Hey, I recently completed this. Listen, I'd like to throw my hat in the ring. to create the chapter of Argentina and add it there because you guys don't have Argentina and you can't not have Argentina. Um, that's in the works, I guess. I have to talk to them again now that I think about it. But that would be, potentially one way in which the word could be made to come out and that. But I do think that the number one way that is word of mouth and it's people saying, "Hey, I was recently in Argentina," or, "Hey, my brother-in-law was in Argentina." Well, go no further. You're saying to me that your sister-in-law came back and said,
Yep.
"You gotta go. You gotta go." So that happens a lot, and people seem to really like it. The word of mouth, I think, and again, these days with internet, you can find out anything.
Sure.
And then you got to get the right tools and the right people, uh, and take it from there.
Well, if anyone would be interested in maybe reviewing some of your ebooks around sort of priming oneself to sort of get started understanding what the real estate sort of process is down in Argentina, the investment process, what's the best way that they should reach out to you?
Well, I think the best way to reach out to us is just through our website. We're on social media and things of that nature. And if they just want to reach out via email or WhatsApp, or we also have a US number, we have like a prefab text file that we send them. And they don't even have to subscribe or click here to subscribe and get spam mail. All they need to do is reach out and say, "Hey, I read about you or heard about you. I'd like to learn more." And we reply to them with a series of links, the two or three ebooks that we wrote, the webinar that was hosted by the Argentina Texas Chamber of Commerce, and then just for yucks, we were in an episode of House Hunters International, so we send that link along too. And again, it doesn't come with any need for them to subscribe or anything like that. They're not going to get hit with emails. They're just going to get replied to when they reach out to us. But yeah, through the website, which I think you said the domain, what that was, or you might add it later, but they can just reach out to us through there.
And that domain is MGOTZ, technically mgotz.com, but we're going to say it the way it's spelled. MGOTZ, MGOTZ.com is where you can learn
Exactly.
about all things Max, as well as his firm and what he offers with respect to not only management of real estate assets, but of course helping people find and procure and also run or get deals closed, of course, in foreign land. So, Max, thank you so much. So, anyone out there
Thank you.
who works with investors, who has investors that are looking for maybe outside investments to the US or want a second home, this is a great opportunity. And I know for sure Argentina is on my list now. Oh, well, it's been on my list to go visit. I still have to still have to do Peru as well. My brother-in-law is Peruvian, and I have yet to make it down there.
Do them
But I
both.
will. Yeah,
Do
I
them
need to.
both. Well, same
I'll
trip.
do them both in one trip, and that would be an amazing trip. But anyway, if anyone out there is interested in learning more, mgotz.com is where you go. Reach out to Max, let him know you heard him on the show. And on behalf of our audience, Max, thank you so much. This was really educational for me and for the audience, really understanding that, hey, real estate is, yes, hyper local for the markets we serve, but of course, there's other markets outside of not just our local market, but of course, even our country that we want to consider as real estate agents. We have a fiduciary responsibility as realtors to our clients, and one of those is becoming educated on good fiduciary opportunities for clients. So this is one to consider. Certainly, Argentina is the reputation of tourism. Tourists love it. I have yet to meet somebody who didn't enjoy visiting Argentina. It's kind of like there's some countries that are like that. Italy's like that. People, you never hear anybody say, "I went to Italy and it just wasn't
I
for
didn't
me."
like it. Yeah,
Didn't
that's
like
true.
it. Yeah,
That's true.
yeah, yeah. And,
Not
and
my cup of
Argentina
tea.
yeah, Argentina has that same exact sort of reputation, and there's a reason for that. And the culture, the scenery, the architecture, the people, as well as the food. And so, please consider doing that and reaching out and learning about it. and let Max know. Again, mgotz.com is the website to learn about all things Argentina. And Max, on behalf of our audience, thank you for coming on our show. Love having somebody from the Southern Hemisphere on our show. It's not very often we get to do that. And although you sound just like me, so it sounds like we're seems like we're in the same room, but we are very far away. But I am excited to plan my trip down there with my girlfriend and hopefully make it there. Maybe even next year. We'll give it a shot. I'll talk to her tonight about it. But on
the
behalf of our audience, thank you, Max. On behalf of Max, thank you to our audience for sticking around till the end. We appreciate you. Please tell another realtor about this show. That's the best way you can continue to help us grow. We've, done almost 600 episodes now. We're one of the most listened to shows. Actually, we believe we're the most listened to show for realtors in the country.
Oh, wow.
Help us continue to grow. Thank you for that. We appreciate you. Check out our sponsors, what they offer, and support our guests. Reach out to Max, learn more about Argentina. Max, thank you so much, and we will
Thank
see
you so
everybody.
much.
We'll see
Pleasure was
everybody on the
absolutely
next
mine.
episode. Thanks.
Thank you.